Welcome to the program. Brad Sheffield joins me. He is a member of the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. It's good to see you, Brad. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, good to be here.
So let's talk, we're going to talk during the program today about the conversation that's going on now between Charlottesville, the city of Charlottesville, the county of Albemarle, regarding Albemarle's courts.
Right.
There's some conversation, again, that Albemarle might be interested in moving its courts out of the city into the county. We will get to that, but first we have to get to what is happening as we speak on Route 29, just north of the city in Albemarle County. Major construction going on. Give us an update. What's happening?
We're about, 2 weeks into the left turn restriction to where nobody can turn left off of Rio Road or turn left onto Rio Road. So right now, during the day and during the night, well, mainly during the day, you can go north, there's 3 lanes open, go south, there's 2 lanes open. But all along, everything in the middle, they're digging it out. We're giving it the name, the Big Dig.
Yeah.
You know, of course, you go to Boston, that was really the Big Dig. But every day, there's about 30-some trucks.
And they've already punched through.
Oh yeah, they've already punched through.
I saw the other day, they've already dug a hole underneath Rio Road.
Yeah, and the bridge platform is already in place. They're going to start pouring concrete and getting that settled. And
so fast.
It's fast.
It's lightning. I couldn't believe. I told my kids the other day, I cannot believe that they're already this far along. It's just
I would
amazing.
say by the end of the week, they should probably be reaching the bottom. They have to dig a little bit more than how deep it will go because they got to put drainage in and all that kind of stuff. But pretty soon, everybody will get a sense of the depth of the difference between the intersection at Rio and the passage going underneath.
So, for those just joining us from Des Moines and Points West, what's happening?
Now,
what is this all about?
I had a neighbor who asked me, what's happening at the intersection of Rio and 29? I'm like, you got to be kidding me, right?
Where have you been?
Yeah, where have you been for the last decade now?
But this is the result of more than a decade of conversation, debate, turmoil, hand-wringing in the Charlottesville area regarding the future of Route 29.
Yeah, I think a lot of that emphasized the need to get this done as quickly and as efficiently as possible, because I started using the analogy that if you waited 20 years to cut down a tree, you're going to need a bigger saw. And the reality is that growth has occurred quite a bit over the last 20 years. Of course, this was going to be disruptive. I think VDOT came in saying, look, if we're going to do this, we better do it right, we better do it quick, and we better do it efficiently. And they're living up to that. Every step of the way, they're getting ahead of the schedule. They got ahead of the May 23rd schedule. They were actually had a little bit of a break there because they were way ahead of that. Word is that they're going to finish on August 5th. That bridge will be open on August 5th.
Holy cow! Yeah. I'm thinking it was next year. August 5th, this summer.
This summer, yeah. And it's because on August 5th, they get about $6.8 million, I think it is, 6-point-something, $8 million. And on August 6th, they get $1.6 million. So they lose $5 million at
the crew
at
that's
midnight.
working on this.
The crew does. Lane Corman, the company that's working on there. At midnight on August 5th, if that bridge is not open, they'll lose $5 million of incentive money.
And they're working around the clock?
They're around the clock. Interesting enough, if they reach certain benchmarks, they get to take time off. And if some people might have noticed this past Sunday, there was no work going on. It's because they get to a certain point where they can't do any more work. You got to wait for concrete to cure or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
And so they're moving so quickly ahead of their own schedules that they get a little bit of break in between. So.
And again, to remind people, what's happening is that Route 29 is going underneath Rio Road. It's one of the most congested, failing, non-working intersections
in the state.
In the whole state.
In the state.
Rio Road and Route 29.
Non-interstate roads, yeah. There I have found one other. There are 2 other roads that are 8 lanes wide in the state of Virginia. Virginia Beach Boulevard, which if you've ever been on there, it's just as dysfunctional as 29. And the other I realized about a month ago is Hull Street down there in Chesterfield. That's 8 lanes,
Okay.
8 lanes wide now. And if you travel on that, you get just as frustrated. But most of the time what happens is when we reach these capacities of lanes and congestion is they separate, they grade separate the intersection.
And that's what this is.
That's what this is. This should have happened probably 20 years ago when they widened to 8 lanes.
Yeah,
And for,
yeah.
for those who don't know, it's 4 lanes, so it's still going to be 8 lanes, just 4 lanes will go underneath and 4 lanes will go and connect to Rio. And there'll still be the same number of
You'll get
turns.
off just like you would at any other grade separated. You'll, going north-south on 29, you'll be able to pull off and go up to Rio Road.
Right, right. And it should make the Rio intersection more efficient. And of course, the through traffic on 29 will be
You won't have
slightly
to stop.
faster, yeah. And the criticism is now you got the problem over at hydraulic. Well, yeah. And we're going to be looking at hydraulic. And I think the idea is, well, if this works at Rio, how can we make it work at hydraulic? But that's getting way ahead of ourselves because we've got other projects that are slated to be completed within the same time frame.
Right, so let's do that. Give us a rundown. Put this project in the context of all the other projects because it's a huge list here.
Right.
And so let's run down the list. The first was the Best Buy ramp. The
Just
ramp
finished.
That's done.
Yep. And
added lanes in front of the Best Buy in Charlottesville, make it easier to get onto the 250 bypass off of 29, right?
And what it used to be is that when you were heading south on 29, you fought to get in that right lane to get onto the 250 bypass. Now, if you're in the far 2 right lanes, you will get onto the 250 bypass because now 2 lanes curve up and get onto 250. It's interesting watching some of the people who didn't realize what was happening. They'll still be trying to fight to get into the far right lane.
When they could go straight.
When they could just stay and go straight.
Yeah.
But give it another month, and it's like the McIntyre Bridge, that intersection at Meadow Creek Parkway.
That's done too.
Yeah, people will work their way out. They'll figure it all out, and it'll.
So the Best Buy on-ramp is
done.
complete.
Done. Yep.
The 29 Rio Road will be done later this summer?
Yeah, October this year should be substantially done. December, completely done.
Okay.
The difference is landscaping and aesthetics and things like that.
And they're also, as we speak, they're widening 29 north of the Ravenna River.
Right, and that's October 2017. That should be finished up. So that'll be 6 lanes from the river all the way up to Hollymead. So that should provide a good amount of congestion relief. And the what I call the pickle, the extra thing on the side is that if you're familiar with the Woodburn connection, the intersection there, that intersection is dangerous. That hill is really dangerous. This
is where the kid was killed,
yeah,
right?
not Woodburn, I'm sorry, Ashwood.
Yeah,
Ashwood.
where the young woman who was driving to high school that morning was killed by a truck. Yeah,
yeah, and it's just because that's a really short sighting distance and the grade and everything. So that's getting knocked down. That's being leveled out. So
great.
That's a benefit because the intersection safety will be greatly improved. At the same time that's happening, we have Berkmar Extended happening.
That's very exciting.
That's the silent project in the woods happening because no one really sees what's happening, but they have the buttresses of the bridge being built. I mean, these
now?
Yeah, that's
no kidding.
They're already
I
there.
had no idea.
Yeah,
wow.
Concrete's already been poured. They're clearing for the road all the way up to Coles.
And that's a second bridge over the Ravenna River that will run parallel to Route 29.
Right.
To help take traffic off of Route 29.
Yeah, so if you're familiar with Berkmar, it ends at Sam's Club, and if you go there now, you'll see a bunch of clearing, and that road will go from Sam's Club all the way up to Coles, uninhibited by any stop signals or anything. And it'll be 2 lanes, like the Parkway is, but it'll take some congestion off 29. What I'm really hoping for is it'll take congestion off Earleysville Road. A lot of the people who use Earleysville Road to kind of get around the 29 congestion.
Right.
But that's slated for October 2017 to be finished. It's going really quickly. It's going really well. They haven't hit any issues. The funniest thing, and we talked about this before, is that so all that dirt that's being dug out of the GSI at Rio, that's all going to
Grade separated interchange.
Yeah. That's all.
So you know all the fancy language and the acronyms. We don't.
Yeah. That's all going to fill in the dirt needed for Berkmar. So all that dirt they're taking out of that big dig is going all to Berkmar to fill in
to make the new bridge.
Yeah. So it's
Very
interesting
cool.
that it's needed to do that little bit of an exchange.
And then when all is said and done, then you get the new technology on all the lights on 29, right?
Right. And that's all there. It's just a matter of flipping the switch and getting it running. And of course, don't forget about Hillsdale, which is another project, and that's being led by the city. So sometimes we leave it out of our discussions because All of these other projects are VDOT projects. They're being handled by VDOT staff. A gentleman by the name of Philip Chouquette, who used to be the VDOT commissioner, is leading a lot of
this
this.
whole effort, yeah.
And he's pretty much a no excuses kind of guy. He doesn't
he's
even,
the guy that reinvented VDOT.
Yeah, he pretty
Very
much got
famously.
everybody under budget, on time.
Right.
And so he's leading those, but Hillsdale is led by the city. And so right now I think they're in the midst of awarding the contract. That's still going to be done by October 2017, but this is a road that a lot of people still wonder if it's even getting built because there's not a lot of activity.
But it will absolutely get built.
It's absolutely 100%
And that's the road that goes from where the new Whole Foods is,
Right.
still relatively new, down at Hydraulic.
Right at the,
and it'll go all the way up to Rio Road.
Right, and so it'll be just like the corridor like Berkmar will be. It'll help relieve some traffic on 29. For people like me who come down that way, when I go home, I won't be going on 29 anymore. I'll just
can go
take
right up
Hillsdale.
Hillsdale.
Yeah, and I think we'll see
Yeah.
a good amount of traffic. It's like 15,000 cars a day will take that.
So all of this, when's it all done?
October 2017.
October of 2017.
Yes,
This will all be done.
And there is no denying that there is a political strategy that, you've got a presidential election in November 2017, and it would be good to have major construction done to alleviate some frustrations with any politics. Doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right or whatever.
Right.
But there's a lot of people who know that, getting this done on October 2017 is key to just making sure that we keep things moving in Virginia.
Yeah. So what's it for you as somebody who has had a front seat and you've been at the table in these conversations, what's the takeaway for you? Is there a lesson about government or community? Because this thing is one for the history books. I'm telling you, historians will look at this one day. I'm one of them who will write the history of Charlottesville, and this is fascinating to see how this has played out over decades.
Yeah,
and here we
decades.
are finally doing the work that was debated and argued about for decades, and it's finally happening.
Well, the biggest takeaway for me is transportation has become political. It started probably 5, maybe 8, 10 years ago now. When I was coming up as a young transportation professional, it wasn't as political. You stick to your metrics, you stick to your engineering. It was core infrastructure. It was like engineering for stormwater or something like that.
Facts mattered.
Facts mattered. And it just over time, transportation frustrates the vast majority of the population. And so it's become political. And that's the takeaway, is that this is just embodies the politics or the infusion of politics in our transportation decision making, which is, if anybody pays attention to politics, when politics gets infused, things get delayed. And if things get delayed, time goes on and then decisions sway back and forth.
And if you delay big projects, they get more expensive.
Right,
too.
they get more expensive, they get harder to get done.
Yeah.
The takeaway is that when you try to get things done, you got to get them done, you got to get them done quickly so you can move on to the next tasks that are facing a growing
And
community.
the danger to politicizing something like this is that facts can matter less.
Yes.
Let me put it that way.
Well, you make decisions on emotion or just on your own
Ideology,
anecdotal-
yeah.
And then you backfill it with logic. And so you take the facts that matter or match up to your perception or decision, and you backfill it. And that's what we all do. When we fall in love with a car, we then find the features of the car that we like, and that's the reason why we love that car. We tell everybody, well, this is why it's the greatest car.
And in my opinion, just speaking for myself, that's what happened with this debate when it came to, should we build a bypass or should we do all this necessary work that we're doing now? It was almost like the facts just got pushed aside.
And then you rewind 20 years ago when they did the three-party agreement to actually build it all in a sequential order. That's when the facts were put out there, and that's when the politics wasn't so involved. It eventually got involved, but everybody agreed, hey, it's not one solution or the other. We need to do everything we can.
Right.
And
it's
so
a whole constellation of stuff that we're going to do.
Let's widen,
to
let's
make
do
this.
GSIs, let's do the bypass.
Parallel roads.
Parallel roads, the whole thing was on the table. And it's interesting that you can follow this. And again, the takeaway is you follow it long enough for 20 years and you see the evolution of the infusion of the politics that then just made it an even more difficult decision to make, as well as a project to get implemented. And this is not it. We're not done. I mean, these projects will finish and we'll have to move on to other discussions. There will need to be a regional corridor that parallels 29. That cannot be denied. We use 29 as our main street. We grow on 29. As much as we resist it, that is the focus of Albemarle's growth, is on 29. You look at everything that's in the pike right now, this Brook Hill development that's just north of the river, Hollymead, North Point that hasn't been built yet, that's all on 29. So if we continue to think that an 8-lane highway is our main street, it's going to remain congested. And I don't see that changing. Hopefully the parallel roads change that attitude a bit.
Yeah. We're talking with Brad Sheffield. He's a member of the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. Brad, let's take a quick break. When we get back, let's talk about the courts, the county courts in the city.
Yes.
We'll explain that and the newest debate here in Central Virginia. You're watching the Coy Barefoot Program. Stay with me. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We are talking with Brad Sheffield. He is a member of the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. Brad, the newest debate is all about the courts.
Yes.
Between the County of Albemarle, which surrounds the city of Charlottesville. Albemarle's courts and administrative offices are all now in the city, right? But there's some conversation between the city and the county. Maybe the county wants to take the courts out of the city, and put them somewhere else. Now, I know as a journalist in this town for 20 plus years that we've been here before. This has been a conversation before. I remember covering this back in the 90s, and it was resolved for the time being. A lot of the judges and the lawyers, they don't want the courts to go out into the county, and they have a lot of sway. But where are we now with the latest iteration of this conversation?
I think the biggest difference that we're seeing is that this is a $47 million question. That's what we're planning on spending, is $47 million of tax money. That's, if people want to equate that to a tax rate, that's 2 cents of the tax rate. That's a lot of money. So I think the previous conversations never had that big of a price tag.
Right.
So the stakes are quite a bit higher.
And where's when we say we're going to spend, what does that mean?
So we have the General District Court that needs to be renovated, that we are going to, the current discussion, there's a couple of current discussions. One of them is to purchase 2 buildings and renovate those, and the city and county would co-locate their general district courts there. And there's some sharing of judges and clerks and stuff like that go on between the city and county. And then there's the renovation of the circuit court, which is the historic building that's in Court Square that is in desperate need of renovation. So a lot of that just adds up to $47 million. It's just you know, when you restore our old building, it costs quite a bit of money to do so. Right.
So if this county stays put in the city, it's looking at a price tag in the ballpark of $47 million.
Right.
Could be more.
And it's just like our road projects. Every year we wait longer, that
Gets
price
more
tag
expensive.
it gets more expensive. Of course.
So what are the alternatives?
So the idea that was being discussed, we got 2 new supervisors in January. So of course this idea has been a little bit more robust because they have opinions as well. Has been, okay, what about the option of locating it out in the county? And we explored that option because $47 million is a $47 million investment. Most of the supervisors on the board are looking at this as not about the working with the city or parking or anything like that. We're looking at, if we're going to spend $47 million, is there a return on that investment that we can garner from doing the right thing or making a reasonable decision?
Or does it become good money after bad?
Yeah. And I would have to say that working with the city has been great. I got involved in these discussions in February. I have found it to be nothing but a good back and forth. We're all still trying to get to a decision point, but they're understanding that we're looking at this from a fiscal responsibility standpoint. We have a responsibility to taxpayers to figure out how to best spend the money. They're looking at it from a management of their capital budget and their parking dynamic and everything else. So they want us to stay there. We want to make sure we're making the right decision. So this new alternative came up about, I guess, a month ago now. The idea came up that said, all right, what if we didn't move the courts? What if we took the county building out, or the county offices out of Lane High School, move them out to the old Lane High School, move that out into the county somewhere, and move the courts to Lane High School. Take that historic building, that beautiful structure, and just convert the interior into the courts that are needed by the circuit court and the general district court. And would there be any pros and cons that need to be weighed doing that? Now, that's where the discussion has landed for supervisors. The city, they said, okay, you want to explore that, that's fine. We're going to kind of sit on the side and participate a little bit in the discussion, but we're going to let you work that out a little bit, and then we'll see where we go from there. So right now, in July, staff is supposed to come back to us with what this concept looks like and how much it might cost or how much we might save. Because
it could be cheaper.
It could, and,
right?
And that's what started this discussion. We were like, wait a second, this structure is pretty sound. It's just really just rearranging some of the walls inside and just doing, I mean, you've been to the county building, it's a nice building. And so we're like, I wonder if this could work. Now, we've asked the public and we're going to engage stakeholders and we're going to talk to them about this idea, but this goes from moving the courts out to the county somewhere miles away to moving the courts.
To new construction.
Yeah, to new construction, yeah. To moving the courts about 1,500 feet, give or take, down High Street or down the road to McIntyre and Preston. To supervisors, they see this as a win-win because, one, the courts stay downtown. So the collaboration that exists between the courts can still happen there. They still have to travel a little bit of distance, but it's still reasonable, at least to some of us. We move the counties out, the county offices out into the county. That may help stimulate some economic development around the county. I mean, you move a county facility somewhere, you usually see economics kind of crop up around there, whether it's office space or venues or whatever it is.
Restaurants.
Yeah, restaurants. And so that's where we are. We're kind of exploring.
Would that be
this.
new construction too, or would you retrofit an existing space for if you move those county offices out to the county?
I think that's part of this exploration is what would that be? Would it be a private-public partnership with a developer who could purchase the land and help us develop it? Would we go out and just purchase land outright? That's part of this exploration is to figure out what would that look like for the county offices? How much of the county offices would have to move? Like you said, Lane High School is fairly large. I think
there's a lot of offices in there.
Yeah, so would we just move, finance and budget or something like that?
You could leave the schools up on the third floor.
Yeah, and there's different mixes, and so we're trying to explore that, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, we, as supervisors, I think some of us, including me, we're torn. I mean, we want to stay downtown. We understand that there's a symbiotic relationship between county and city courts and the vibrancy of the downtown.
Always has been.
Yeah,
always has been.
But when you're told as an elected official, here's $47 million, please spend it responsibly, you kind of have to put that to the side and look at what are the other options and kind of weigh them in context of all that bigger discussion. But it's a tough one. $47 million is a lot of money, and I don't think the county's spent this sum of money in a long time. I'm still trying to find when's the last time we spent $47 million. I mean, the county, not VDOT, not the city, not the state, but us. And so I think we better have the right information to make the right decision so that we can have the best conversation with constituents.
And if you move the courts to the county, to what is now the county office building, the old Lane High School at McIntyre and Preston, plenty of parking. It's the old football field is now a big parking lot.
Yeah, we've got about 280 spaces, so I think we'll be all right with parking. So that takes that off the equation. So the new dynamic becomes pedestrian connections, that kind of thing. The McIntyre Preston intersection is not the greatest intersection.
It needs to be a traffic circle.
Yeah.
I have been saying that for over 20 years. That would be one of the most beautiful marquee signature traffic circles in the state of Virginia. It would be gorgeous with a park in the middle, but you know.
You go up the road to Main Street and Ridge, and you see that intersection is same kind of volume of traffic. It's got a better feel to it. You feel more comfortable crossing it and stuff. I think we would want that at Preston and McIntyre.
Yeah.
And I think that becomes the bigger question, is not parking, but how do you create a better pedestrian environment? Because you'd want to make sure the courts were still connected to that
And the
downtown.
myth that traffic circles are worse for pedestrians is just that. It is a myth.
It is a myth.
It's actually
Yeah,
better for pedestrians.
They are very
It can be
functional.
safer for pedestrians.
Yeah, they definitely work very well in many places.
So what's the timeline on this? July?
Yeah,
When do we
July.
expect some kind of decision, and how can the public weigh in on the conversation?
Yeah, so the second meeting in July, I forget which one we'll see this presentation. I think it'll be the first one. The public can continue to weigh on. Without a doubt, the legal community has weighed in on this conversation.
I'm sure they have,
And
because they want to stay, right?
They want to stay, and it behooves them to stay in a very contained area. That's their job. It's like trying to take a hospital and spread it out too much.
Right.
So we fully understand that. But again, we as
You also have the
elected officials,
responsibility
we
to
have
spend the money wisely.
responsibility. Yeah, it
course.
comes down to that. It's just understanding what our responsibility is. And it's, like I said, I'm not going to deny that, you don't take office and get easy decisions. They are tough decisions. And there has never been a decision that I haven't thought, oh man, this is the easy one. It's tough, tough.
They're all tough decisions.
Yeah, so I would say we've got to make something probably by the end of the summer. We really need to say, this is what we're going to do, and we're
Right.
moving forward. Because the public needs to know what we're going to do. We need to know what we're going to do for capital planning. The city needs to know what we're going to do in the legal community. We're all done waiting.
Yeah.
We need to make a decision. This last little spin is just delaying it a little bit longer, but I think we'll just add to the good conversation.
Well, if you come up with a new vision for Lane High School to move the courts there, then let's make sure a conversation about a traffic circle
Yes.
right there at McIntyre and Preston, which is better for pedestrians, becomes part of the solution. That would be great.
I think it's a worthwhile investment.
Yeah. Brad, thank you, man.
Yes, thank you.
My friend Brad Sheffield, he is a member of the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. A lot of good stuff going on right now. I'm Coy Barefoot. You can find the complete archive of our programs online at mediaandcitizenship.org. Y'all have a terrific week and be good to each other.